let's look at Blazing Him now. And as you can see, this one definitely, it's seen some love. It's gotten some love from me. I've read and reread this one a few times. Although it's been a while since I've read it. I'm going to be remembering things as we go, I suspect. But it's been long enough that I might be surprised by things that I don't remember. So I'm excited for this one. And this was also part of the reason I decided to go with it. A, because it's basically a zine. It's a much shorter game, and I definitely think we'll get through it, since a lot of it is specs on the different types of angels and different kinds of armor that you can use. But at the same time, I do want to dive into some of these mechanics. It is based on the Lumen system, which is a base system that I'm not 100% familiar with. It seems to be a very sort of rules-light system meant for adventures and stories with quick, tactical, but still rules-light, fast-moving, fast-paced combat, which feels to me like a good match for anime. And the kind of anime stories and mech and magical girl fighting stories that this game is going to try and tell us. That said, I've tried twice now to get the boys to play this with me. I've been so close, and then both times something happened. Either a different game was chosen, or we had extra people coming in, and we had to switch our games. So both times I haven't gotten around to actually playing it with the boys or running it for the boys. I'm hoping to do so at some point, and this might be the reminder and refresh on the rules that I need to actually get that done. So with that in mind, let me rehydrate real quick here. And let's look at Blazing Him, We Will Damn This World Together, an indie game by, let's see, is the hymnal, Overture, Angel Ending? Is it at the end? Here we go. Peach Garden RPGs, or on the socials. I believe I followed Catlin Gunn back on X, the Everything app. But also I think they're on the other socials. Just look them up. They've got a couple other games that they've done. They've also organized a few RPG game bundles in the past. I think some of my games were part of one of those bundles in the past. They're a lovely person. I've only had light interactions with them, but they seem very lovely, and I very much dig this game. They put out a few other games that I will have to look up, but I very much dig this one. And as I said, illuminated by Lumen. Lumen is the system, the SRD. So let's see. Let's just start here from the top. I just wanted to make sure whether the back part was something that we wanted to start first, but no. We're going to start from the start, and I will be reading a decent amount from this book because a lot of it is very atmospheric, very good. I think it does a great job of setting up the world and the vibe of the world. Especially, okay, so actually first, before we do that, let me set something up real quick. Here, because I think we're going to need to refer to something. I have a deep and powerful need to make sure that you are all on the same page as me. Welcome to the Symphogear Wiki. If you don't know about Symphogear, I feel bad for you, son. I do. It is underrated, severely underrated. Basically, magical girl / battle anime, and it is lovingly taken care of by this game that we're going to see. The influences in it are very strong, and I just wanted you to see this. And the various series that are happening here, because Symphogear is an anime about what we're going to see in this game. It's an anime about young girls. In the game, you can be whatever, but generally young people who fight enemies through the power of music. They have these magical suits, and the suits are powered by basically sonic frequencies. It's been a while since I've seen it, so bear with me. And of course, this being anime, it leads itself very much to the power of hope and all that. So when you're singing your heart out, you are more powerful. And the various symphonies and songs that they do empower their suits. And so it makes it so that the battles are both like basically pop performances, but also wild anime battles. And the animation is great. The storyline is surprisingly deep. You really get invested into the characters, despite the incredibly silly premise. Because in typical anime style, even though the premise is silly, the stakes are huge. They're fighting against the end of the world. People die. These are young girls going through trauma. Get in the goddamn magical music armor, Shinji. And I strongly suggest, I cannot recommend this highly enough. I strongly suggest swallow your pride a bit and check out. You will not be disappointed, even if it doesn't seem like it's the kind of anime that you might normally be into. It's not necessarily the kind of anime I'm normally into. I do Sentai anime and this whole team battle, like the very classic stuff. Girls singing is not exactly this. It wouldn't have drawn me in unless I'd had somebody else give me the same spiel and go, no, bro, check out Symphogear. You are missing out. Not enough people know about this show. And now I am passing that on to all of you who are watching, all the thousands, you and your unknown thousands. Go check out Symphogear. It is amazing. I think it's probably on a few of the legal streaming services. It is definitely there for you if you know where to look. And on that note, let's look at the actual game. Let's go back to actually let's have me stop simping for anime girls. This is why I'm on here asking if any sad goth girls would like to take advantage of me. This is why, because I simp for the anime girls. I don't actually simp for the anime girls. My taste in entertainment are embarrassing. You know what's not embarrassing? This game. There's your segue. Let's look at Blazing Him. And now that we've got a bit of a vibe, so picture that. Picture what I just showed you as we now go into the game. Because one thing that does, understandable, art is hard. If you yourself are not an artist and you want to have art in your game, you need to commission an artist, and artists deserve to get paid. This is not a screed, oh, art is so expensive. It is, and it should be. Artists deserve to get paid. I cannot draw for shit. As far as I am concerned, visual artists, people who can draw, whether it's digitally or with ink or watercolors, whatever, that's witchcraft. Utter witchcraft. I do not understand. There is no part of my brain, my body, my mind that grokks and clicks with the process of creating visual art and drawings and stuff like that. Artists are witches. They are mysteries. I do not understand them. I respect and fear them as one should, from afar. And if you are going to ask an artist, you are going to request art from that artist, you should come bearing an appropriate sacrifice for that artist. With that in mind, I understand, given that this is basically a zine, why there isn't much, if any, real art of characters or types or angels or anything. It's basically text and some visual design, graphic design for the layout and of the game itself, which I think is great. I think it's actually pretty good. It's a zine style, so some parts legibility might be rough in some areas, but overall, good design. Wish there was more art, of course, but it is what it is. We'll take it. That's part of why I wanted to show you all Symphogear. So yeah, exactly, Ken Doyle. I also, at least currently, definitely cannot afford art. This whole thing, right? The whole thing, overlay. I didn't make this. This was Etsy. I bought this on Etsy. I paid good money for it. Worth every penny. If anybody likes it, let me know, and I can look up who the artist was. But I did pay for it because I can't do this on my own. Nothing. I'm no good at this. Again, with in mind, completely willing to forgive that there is not a lot of art in this book. That said, I do wish it was there. So that's my only complaint there. And now you've seen the Symphogear website, so go ahead and picture the magical girls as we dive into the game proper. So let's finally go ahead and do that. Let's see, if I see any RPG book that uses AI art, quote unquote AI art, they are not getting my money. No, I get that. It is weird. Like, I will not I will definitely also not support or pay for any book that is using AI art. I don't appreciate it. I'd rather just have some decent visual design and a good game and no art than those same things and then AI art. Knowing that, it's not necessarily knowing that you could have supported artists and didn't. Maybe you couldn't support artists, right? I get it. Maybe you can't afford. I cannot afford that, unfortunately. I definitely want to commission art for myself. One over here over my shoulder. Oh, there we go. That up there, which is blurry right now, and I'm not gonna do all the effort of doing that. But that is a commissioned piece of art from Tony DiTerlizzi, one of my favorite artists. You may know him from Planescape or other. I'm sure there's other. I believe he's, what is it? I don't know. There's several series that he does art for. He's famous for a lot more than just Planescape. He's also, I believe, one of the main artists for the original Changeling the Dreaming. Anyway, I love his art style, and that is an actual, it's not a print, that is the actual original art from that artist. I was given it as a present. I do not know how much it cost. It is quite literally possibly the most important, the most valuable thing that I have, and I have nothing but respect for it. And for artists, again, I would rather have no art than AI art. I do understand, for example, I have no issue with it if, for example, for a home game, your players, and your GM use some AI art to spice up your home game. Sure. I don't approve of it. I'm not going to say, fuck yeah. Yeah, I played with AI art myself before I really got more, like, aware of the costs and everything. Now I don't really find it that fun, but I get it. I get the fun of it and then how useful it is for people. And if, again, it's a home game, look, man, that they were never going to commission an artist to make them character pictures. Like, for the most part, these people were not going to spend that. If the money was never going to be spent, then fine, whatever. Still not a great thing considering the cost in electricity, etc. But I'm not going to come to your house and rip your AI art out of your cold dead hands. But for commercial games and for anything that's being put out for others, especially if it's commercial, especially if you're selling it, no, AI art and AI generated products are not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. And not something that's ever going to get my money in any case. Let us finally dive into the book. This is all in the post-stream editing. That entire thing is just going to end up on the cutting room floor. It's just what I do when I clean these up. Every digression just ends up on the cutting room floor. So those of you who are here live, you're welcome. You're getting the stuff that everybody else just doesn't get. Stuff like me ranting about AI art. Let's see. I sing of us with every bullet. Now here's the sad part. See, there's another digression. Here's the sad part. I also cannot sing. I will not be made to sing. You don't want me to sing. Me singing would be a bad idea, a bad thing. Unfortunately, I will not be singing even things that look like lyrics. I will simply be reading them because this is for your sake as much as my own. All right? I sing of us with every bullet because the thought of you is the reason I can never let myself fall. I love that. I sing of us with every bullet in a game where you use song to fight because the thought of you is the reason I can never let myself fall. That is anime as fuck right there. I love it. I love it. A very cool little quote to start with. That's the overture. The lights are dimming. So here's your warning, your content warning, and the general themes and safety, some safety mechanics, and just the requirements of the game. So it's all game stuff, good stuff that's good to know, and also stuff for anybody watching the stream. Here's your content warnings for this game, because this game does deal with some topics. Capital T, topics. Overture. The lights are dimming. This game has religious and blasphemous themes, just in case the "we will damn this world together" and "we will damn the angels" did not clue you in to the fact that this game does kind of have some blasphemous themes. And violence towards innocents. That's I know where that's coming from. The first time I read it, that kind of caught me off guard, but I see that it is a danger when you're fighting the way combat is. We'll dive into that. It did shock me the first time I saw it. Wait, are we harming innocents in this game? Is that a major topic? But it is fair to bring it up. It just did shock me the first time. If any of these things make you uncomfortable or cause you stress, please set the game down. Treasure your mental health. So saying, hey, if the things we're going to do in this game, things we want to talk about, bother you, it's cool. It's cool. No judgment. Step away. Not the game for you. All good. Blazing Him is meant to be played by 3 to 6 people, one of whom is a game master. This is a more traditional game with a game master. In this game, the game master's primary role is to set up missions and control opponents. In addition to your players, you will need 6-sided dice, preferably 4 or 5. So the Lumen system is very just some way of keeping track of characters, like a pen and paper. Are there character sheets? I don't think so. The characters, oh yeah, there are. Here we go. Yeah, we do have some character sheets that we can photocopy and print out. A map, shared screen, or other way to illustrate locations of characters and enemies. Optional, but highly recommended. So while this game is not really compatible 100% with Theater of the Mind, it is a very abstracted system. There is a map thing. It's meant to be played on a map, but at the same time, it's not necessarily super crunchy. But again, we'll see that when we get to it. So like I said, it's optional, but it's highly recommended. The kind of game this is very much benefits from that aspect. I think that's also one of the reasons why it's been a while. We haven't quite gotten around to playing it with the boys, because any game that really benefits that much from a visual, physical element, it's not always a good match for a podcast, right? That said, it's not 100% required, but it does help. It does help. Like that. We'll look at that once we get to the combat. Before you start play, make sure all players know that violence is a central theme. Right? This is a game where you are fighting things. There will be violence. Ask if everyone is all right with civilian targets being involved. And if they're not, you can work with that. But it is a kind of a major theme in the game. We'll see. Make sure the players know the character death is their own choice, not the GM's. Establish ages for the cast based on everyone's comfort level. Go over any triggers, stress points, or dark themes as a group, anonymously or not. Safety tools. A little bit surprised that there wasn't like a link to like usually one of the safety tools, resources online or anything like that, but basically safety tools. Decide whether this takes place in your own city, your own world, or a fictional one, and agree to play the game in a way that everyone is comfortable with. A good sort of session 0 stuff. Now we go into the actual game setting itself. Let's take a moment. I would switch the background music, because right now it's this sort of wacky haunted town music that I was using that fit Penumbra City and Cantrip. I don't think this wacky haunted town music fits this. But I don't know. Do I? Nah, I don't have the time. I'm not going to spend the time right now going into my music. Actually, you know what? No, I might. You know what? We're about to start a new game. Let's do a little break. That'll give me a chance to actually refresh my water. We've already been going for an hour and a quarter. So this is a good time to take a quick break. And that way we can focus and maybe get through the whole thing in one section. I think I would like to do that. So let's do that. Let's refocus a little bit. We will be back in 5 minutes. And I'll use that time also to maybe find some more fitting background music for when we're going to it as well. All right. So folks, thanks so much for hanging out. Bear with me. We will be back in 5, count 'em, 5 minutes. And be right back. we've returned. And I've changed out the music. Hopefully it's in the background. It's not too noticeable, but it's not completely unnoticeable. Yeah, there we go. It's dramatic tactical combat music. So let's see how that treats us as we finally settle in. No more interruptions till the end of the stream. Look at Blazing Him. So let us look at the Angel Landing. This is the setting. This is the first thing that we're going to see here. This should give us the vibe of the world itself. So let's go ahead and read through it. Angel Landing. Chorus of devastation. Humanity, it seems, has lived on this planet long enough. At first, when we called them angels, we meant it. Their flawless crystalline forms caught the sunlight in dazzling colors, and their radiance set our hearts at ease. These otherworldly creatures didn't come from any planet we could identify, but we knew the second we set eyes on them that they came from somewhere beyond us. Then, the slaughter began. Soon we spat the word angel with a thick, poisonous irony heavy with grief and terror. Their attacks didn't seem random. In the middle of our largest and proudest cities, they showed their blades and showered the land in their poison. They flashed into existence like exquisite kaleidoscopes, and everyone they touched died. Earth creatures, ourselves included, crumple at their touch, dead in instants. Where angels have gone, nothing will live. The air shimmers like an oil slick in all the colors of the rainbow, and the very grass withers. There is a lingering sound, faint but detectable by sensors, like the ringing of a struck wine glass. Now, we call them angels, literally. We know what they are. They have come from heaven to massacre us. We will not let them. So that's the base. The world has been attacked by these interdimensional, transdimensional creatures, beings known as angels. They seem incredibly hostile to human life. Their very existence, they poison the air and earth, and they make the earth uninhabitable merely by being in it. Never mind when they actually start attacking, and humans are basically defenseless against them. The moment you touch one, you're dead. Meeting has finally ended. Oh look, we have angels in the Neon Genesis Evangelion sense. That is, NGE is very much also part of the inspiration for this particular game. So let's continue with the setting and the history, because I love this. Hymnal, Melodies of War. Go ahead and bend it. There we go. Heretical scientists listened to the singing of the angels, and soon one stepped forward with a theory. Gain. That theory became a principle. That principle became a weapon. That weapon became our only hope. Now we have hymnals to defend us. Arcane battlesuits powered by our human songs of violence, hope, and pride. The wearer sings to generate gain, which is converted by the heretical magic in the hymnal system. Music becomes a shield against the angels and their poison, and songs become our weapons. A hymnal unit is lean and sleek, but capable of generating solid matter out of seemingly nothing. That matter takes different forms depending on its type. Some hymnal units can summon enormous swords, and some shoot bullets or arrows. They also augment the physical speed and power of their wearers, making anyone into a literal combat machine. When not in use, a hymnal looks like a pendant, a faceted gem that shines like an angel wrapped tightly in a network of platinum wires. The user sings an activation melody, which causes it to manifest the battle armor. At first, it was our hope that hymnal units could be mass-produced and distributed to militaries for hardened soldiers to wear. That hope died on the vine. Not only is every hymnal unit unique, but the people best capable of summoning its arcane power aren't soldiers. They're musicians, typically young ones capable of screaming their very souls into their music and meaning every word of it. International legislation against the use of child soldiers dissolved when the world discovered that the best hymnal users are teenagers and young adults. Some organizations try not to think about the consequences. Some have psychological and development experts on staff to try and buffer the impact of combat on young hearts. For now, we have no choice. We have to survive, and these are the heroes we're given. Let's see. Oh boy, this game will definitely have "Shut up, Shinji, just get into Ava" moments, says Twitch, and that is correct. That is correct. It is very much in topic with that. That's the setting. Angels, these beings that we know as angels, are attacking. They're killing the people. They're destroying the world. And we discovered a way to fight back. Unfortunately, the way to fight back is kind of silly because it involves music and vibrations and whatnot, and this concept of gain, but also child soldiers, which is anime in a nutshell. So you kind of have to deal with that. So let's look at the system, because I do dig. Again, I'm not a musician either. I am not. Look, man, I am not in any way, shape, or form talented. All right, I am not an artist. I am a performer. Here I am performing for you. I am the monkey. I dance, but I cannot draw. I cannot sing, and I cannot play music. I simply don't have. I have a harmonica. Here, look at this. This is the extent of my musical ability. That's it. That's it. I can't even do the rest of it. Just that. Point is, I'm also not a teenager. Just in case the snowy white beard did not give it away. So I'm not getting into a hymnal and singing. So therefore, I will not be singing during this review, as I have established earlier. But the system for the game does take into account a lot of musical and sound-based terms. Based on your choice of tabletop RPGs to reviews the last few days, we couldn't tell you couldn't. Funny about that. We've got the basics of the system. And we've got volume, tempo, and harmony, your own screaming song. When you are in your hymnal unit and trying to perform an action that may fail, so this is the system, this is the basic game system. And one thing that will become clearer later, it does say it now, so it does actually spell it out, that when you are in your hymnal unit, by default, this game, the mechanics really only kick in when you activate your hymnal, when you activate your battle suit. It is when you're out of your battle suit, it's called a cantrip. There's no real system. You're just playing out scenes. It's not until combat begins, until action begins, that the game system starts kicking in, really. And so when you are in your hymnal unit and trying to perform an action that may fail, choose one of three approaches. So it's an approach-based game, which reminds me of Fate Accelerated, but I think it's also just part of the Lumen system. This is another one that, just like with Cantrip, with Cantrip and Belonging Outside Belonging games, that one is more of a vibe and a genre, while Lumen is an SRD. It is a system. The back right there. Lumen is like a system. So I'm assuming other Lumen-based games, I'm going to have to look for some and compare. Assuming other Lumen-based games have similar mechanics, maybe with different terms, but I'm guessing this whole approach is to them. Another thing we're going to have to explore. We are exploring together, friends. We are learning new things. We are old dogs, and yet here we are learning new things. We have three approaches: volume, tempo, and harmony. If you take the volume approach, that is direct, powerful, straightforward, brute force actions, ripping a door open, grabbing an angel and tearing it apart. Tempo actions, tempo approaches are graceful, fast, evasive actions, running up the side of a building, speeding across the water, dodging a blast. Harmony approaches are thoughtful, measured, deliberate actions under fire, lining up the perfect shot, predicting an enemy's movements. Then you will roll one die, all d6s, so you only use d6s in this game. Roll one die for every point your hymnal unit has in that approach. So if your hymnal has a 2 and a 3 in tempo and a 1 in harmony, then if you take a tempo approach, you're going to be rolling 3 die. If you're taking a harmony approach, you're only rolling 1 die. I don't know if that's what the stats look like. We'll look at them once we look at the hymnals themselves, but in a nutshell. So you roll one die for a point your hymnal unit has in that approach, then choose the highest die roll. Unless otherwise stated, on a 1 or 2, the action fails. Okay, so you choose, I was going to say what happens to the other one. You choose the highest one. If your highest die is a 1 or 2, the action fails with consequence. 3 or 4, the action succeeds with consequence. or 5 and 6, the action just succeeds, no consequence. So this is very much, it's not necessarily 100% fail forward, but it is in that play to find out vibe where no matter what, the story is going to continue. An action never simply fails and nothing else happens. If it fails, there's a consequence. If it succeeds, it can be a consequence, or it can just succeed because success in and of itself generally moves the story forward. Consequences. So what are we talking about, right, when we're talking consequences? Let's see. Consequences may include enemies getting extra actions, civilian, I told you to come back up, property damage, or harm to one of the hymnal units, or its pilot. Most missions take place in combat where the GM will choose an enemy action from a list when you roll 4 or lower. So we'll see that in some of the examples. When you roll the consequences, some missions actually give you example consequences that will happen during that mission, which is good. I like that. When you are not in your hymnal, you are a civilian. See, this is what I was saying. When you're not in your hymnal, when you're not in combat, this system doesn't kick in. Civilians do not have tempo, harmony, or gain, and they only have 1 health. So when you're a civilian, you're fucked. You're fucked. You are not punching an angel, not without a hymnal. When you are a civilian and trying to perform an action that may fail, roll a single die. That's it. Again, you don't want to try things if your hymnal is not working. Raising gain, which is a pun on Raising Cain, I believe. Howl your curses to heaven. So here's the explanation of what gain is in the game. Gain is the force that powers your hymnal unit. You generate gain by singing when the emotional and phonic energy created by your song is converted by the hymnal into raw power. So again, they're not kidding. They're not kidding when they say song. Like you, and again, I strongly recommend watch Symphogear. It is cooler than you think it is. I swear it's cooler than you think it is. But yes, your character sings. They raise their voice and they begin to sing to generate this gain with a capital G that allows their hymnals to activate and it gets turned in this music, the song. And you have to keep singing as you're fighting. And the kinds of songs that you sing and the kinds of songs that the other people in your group sing matter. We'll see that. I think it's a very fun approach. When you activate your hymnal, choose one of the songs you know, and we'll look at those in a minute, and begin to sing. From that point until you stop singing, you have the benefits listed under that song. So there are different types of songs. Different types of songs will give you different benefits and effects to your hymnal in the game. At the beginning of your action, you receive gain to add to your total. The amount is listed next to the song type. For example, if singing a violin song, you would add 2 gain when your turn starts. Gain can also be used to conduct emergency repairs on your hymnal unit. Conversely, the hymnal unit can generate extra gain by overheating. In other words, health and gain are interchangeable. Good to know. You can sacrifice health to gain power. If you reach 0 health, you can spend 1 gain to regain 1 health. If you reach 0 gain, you can spend 1 health to regain 1 gain. Pretty straightforward. When you reach both 0 health and 0 gain, your hymnal unit is deactivated, leaving you in your civilian form. In this form, you have 1 health, only roll 1 die and risk for any risky actions, and cannot use powers. Again, it sucks to be a civilian. Don't be a civilian. All hymnal units can sing the Supreme Melody. This ancient song costs 12 gain to sing, taking enormous strain on the unit. The Supreme Melody deals 4 harm, which is a lot, to every opponent on the scene, even those behind arcane barriers. Again, we'll see that. And to be fair, we're seeing a lot of terms be brought up. And I have criticized other games for this, and I'm going to do it for this one. I guess it may clutter it up, and it's hard to avoid. Unless you... I know some World of Darkness books will have a glossary before you dive into that. They might talk a little bit about the setting before, but very quickly near the start of the book, they'll have a glossary. Because from that point onward, they're going to need to use certain terms, like Vampire the Masquerades will need to talk about ancillae and neonates, and then what a prince of the city is and stuff. So it's going to define the terms before we get here. Not every game is going to do that. I get that. But then if you're going to do that, tell me where. So for harm, see page, what is harm? What exactly does that mean yet? We haven't defined harm. Is that a lot? I know it's a lot because I've read ahead. But when you're first reading that, is that a lot? Is that a little? You hope it's a lot, maybe. Again, define some of these terms before you start using them. It's a pet peeve of mine with a lot of games. I've criticized other games for it. I'm going to level a mild criticism. Again, this is a zine, and it's an indie game. So I'm also very forgiving of a lot of things. This is more of advice and things that I tell also of myself, because I do plan to write some more games and I want to be true to my own approach. And I know I have not followed that approach in previous games. I say this also just for myself, but I feel like linking to the page where that term is defined when you first use a term is the least you can do. But that's just me. Right? Let's see. Of the things I've seen, looks like classic fail-forward system based on the dice math, right? And be consistent. Always define your terms the first time you use them, or at least have a reference. Exactly. That's just how I feel. That's just how I feel about that. And I think it's very useful in a lot of games. Especially because then it lets you get away. Because at that point, once you define your terms, then you can just go all in. Go all in on the game setting, go all in on the game terms, go all in on just using all the fancy words that you want to use in your game, right? Let's see. Any opponent not destroyed by the supreme melody is knocked back until they are far, capital F, again, game term, which should be defined, from the singer. In fact, if anything, this whole thing, I get that it's there. I feel like that should have had its own section. But this is a mechanic thing. Up until this point, we are still doing mechanics, right? We're talking about how you raise your gain and how you get it and how you spend it and how you can convert health to gain and gain to health. Cool. Up until that point, we are good. This part about the supreme melody is cool. I love it. And if you've ever watched Symphogear, slight spoiler, but also this is anime. It's a very common anime trope. You have an ultimate attack. Same. There's an ultimate attack thing. Cool. That should be later on. That should be maybe in the combat, specifically combat description, or at the end of the description of the various hymnals. Hey, all hymnals can do this as well. Because at that point, when you bring it up, you will have discussed what harm is, how that works, what arcane barriers are, what far means in terms of the game, etc., etc. So that's my approach. That's how I would have approached that there. Again, indie game, get it. And it's not that complicated. All these terms will be defined later. The real sin would be if they were not defined at all. But best practices going forward. I've criticized other games for it. I'm going to criticize this one as well. I'll be consistent. It's a thing I'm going to try and keep going. Despite that, you've seen how excited I am about this game. I love it. I nitpick because I love it. I don't think there's probably going to be any game of the ones that I have picked out to go through that I'm not going to, at some level, love. I'm not going... I have no intention nor desire to spend hours going over a complete stinker of a game, right? Let's see. A hymn for you. One note in the symphony of violence. Let's see. Every hymnal unit is unique. Yours will be crafted exclusively for you. It will, as far as the research has seen, not respond to any voice but yours. So that's why they can't be mass-produced. Each one has to be produced specifically for the person who's going to use it. So first you will choose a hymnal class, and we'll check those out in a minute. Each has its own list of powers, its own attacks, and 2 variant stat lines, which I really like. Hymnal units are classified by the weapons they manifest. If you can't decide, roll a die. There are 6 classes. Describe the weapon manifested by your hymnal unit. If you are using a class 01, does it manifest an elegant rapier or a heavy khanda? If you're using a class 05, does it manifest a reliable lance or a brutal warhammer? Next, choose which variant model you will use. Each class is a type A and a type B. These are your stats. Next, you'll choose 3 out of the 5 powers listed under your hymnal feat, so this is basically your character generation. If you like, rename these powers. This unit was built just for you. You can call its powers anything you like. I dig that. Personalize it. And then you'll choose 3 songs. If you like, answer the questions listed under the song entries, either by yourself or with the other players. You can give names to your songs if you like. I already told Dave that if and when we play this, yes, he can make a ska-based hymnal. A hymnal unit produces energy and matter of a particular visual wavelength, which is to say each unit has its own color. Again, you saw the Symphogear page, they are color-coded. No 2 have identical spectrum data, so decide on your unit's identifying color. Do you need a family member's soul to make the hymnal unit? They never quite say that. I have a feeling hymnals are actually like chained angels, but they never quite detail that. So in summary, quick summary on how to do that, which is good. This is just the steps. You choose a hymnal class, you define your weapon, you choose your stat line variant, you choose 3 powers, rename them if wanted, you choose 3 songs, rename them if wanted, you answer your questions, you name your character, and you choose your color. Pretty straightforward, simple character generation. And once we see the hymnals, you'll see that they're very simple. As we said, there are basically 3 stats that they have, the 3 approaches: volume, harmony, and value, tempo, and harmony. And then their specific weapons and specific powers that they have. So there's 6 classes, 2 variations in. Let's go ahead. Bullet metronome, love that. So let's go ahead and see that. By the way, I love that the decorations here, that the lines are basically, this is audio. These are clearly audio wavelengths. I dig that. So let's see. Let's look at the various classes. Leave it to the GM to tell that story. Exactly. Leave it to the GM to tell that story. There is some setting. The setting is very simple. Again, just a zine. But it is cool. It is cool. We do get some more about the civilians and stuff like that. We do get a little bit more about the world later on. Yeah, like the agency and how that's structured. So we do get to see some more of that later. Don't worry. But again, it's just, as you saw, I think it's just like a page. Rules light, setting, it's more vibes, setting light, and just bring in whatever anime tropes you feel work best for your story. So let's take a look at the various types. So class 1, so there's going to be 6 of these. Class 1 is a Tsurugi type. Tsurugi types manifest long blades, like any number of history's long swords. The first stable class 1, also the first stable hymnal, manifested a Scottish claymore, but it got its nickname from the popularity of Japanese swords in Class 01 units. Class 01 units can either be well balanced and mobile or slow and heavy, depending on the type. This frame has average health and specializes in dominating close-range battles. So basically, each unit, each hymnal, is a battle unit with its own specialty. And within that, there's the variations. So the Tsurugi types are going to be either well-balanced and mobile or slow and heavy, depending on the type. But these are still like fighters. And they are specialization in dominating close-range battles. So these are your frontline fighters. They have swords, magical swords, and they go up close. And so you can see how it's set up. So the type A, which is meant to be more well-balanced, has 2 volume, 3 tempo, 2 harmony, so pretty close stats on all of it. Tempo being the mobility, so it's more mobile than anything else, but it's pretty well-balanced. Well, the type B, which is meant to be slower and heavier, it's got volume 3, so it's got a higher rating for damage, for attack, for violence, but a tempo of 1, much slower, while still maintaining a higher harmony. So, like I said, balance is kind of weird. Yeah, like the type B technically has more points in it than type A. So but again, so much slower. So you do your trade-offs. It is a close-range attacker. Each attack does 2 harm. So now we're getting a better image. Your health is 3. An attack does 2 harm. So now you see what it looks like. Okay, 2 harm is still a solid hit because nobody has a lot of hurt. The next one we're going to look at only has 2 health. And when we look at the angels, we'll get a look at their stats as well. But this is very anime, right? I'm guessing a lot of angels are only going to have 1 or 2 health because you're meant to just claw, just go through the bulk of them while hopefully evading hits. Let's take a look at the powers. So you're going to choose 3 of them. I don't remember seeing that any of these are necessarily locked to higher levels, but they do have a cost in gain. So some of the more powerful ones will cost 2 gain versus some of the day-to-day ones will cost 1 gain. So let's look at these powers. Let's look at these powers for the first type, and then we might skip over a few more of them. We are almost 2 hours in. I definitely don't want to make this a 2-parter. I'm going to take a close look at this one, then we'll take a close look at one other class type, and then we'll move on. I don't want to just go through the details of each one. If we were, then cool, but I'll just skim over the other ones to give you, because once you've seen one, then you've got a pretty solid idea of what the rest are going to look like. So focusing on, again, this close range fighter, we'll do the close range fighter, and then we'll pick a long range fighter so we can compare. So the powers available: the binding knife costs 1 gain. Choose a target at any range, prevent that target's next movement. So combat in this game is fast, quick, and tactical. So as you can see by the very first power that you are given access to, or that you can choose here, is a power for, we've got a hymnal class, a character class, that is focused on close combat, it's focused on its close range, but also it's got some crowd control, it's got mobility. So you can do that binding knife. So if there's a bigger enemy you're fighting, one or two enemies up front, there's another one coming up ahead, and you wanna keep it pinned down so that it doesn't join and you're not overwhelmed, stuff like that. Boom, binding knife, fling, that enemy's not moving this round. Buys you and your comrades an extra round. Cool. Blade Wall also costs 1 gain. Prevents an enemy attack against any close characters. I like this kind of ability as well. I like abilities that let you protect others, that let you manage the battlefield. I'm a big fan of support characters in the past. So anything that lets me do things besides just attack or defend myself, I'm going to be a fan of. So I like that there is that ability that the hymnals are not just focused on their own abilities, but also on battlefield control and assisting others. Third ability, Soaring Slash. Now that was a straight up attack. Move to a far target and deal 2 harm. I like that. Combines movement and attack in one, costs 1 gain, does a decent amount of damage, is epic. Holy Sword, 2 gain. Deal 1 harm to every close opponent, so an area of attack, and reduce condemnation by 10%. Again, I wish we had condemnation explained earlier, or give me a link. Condemnation, see page blah, to see what that means. We will see what condemnation means. It is basically that the game effect of what they said, that the angels poison the air and ground around them. So basically, I'll give you a preview, which is that condemnation is how the game tracks how polluted, how damaged the reality in this world, how poisoned this world has become during the battle itself. And that level has effects on the battle. It can have effect on more angels joining. It can have effects on your abilities. And of course, it's deadly to civilians. Now you know what that means. But again, I wish at the very least, point me at the page where the term is defined. But a lot of abilities, with that in mind, some of these abilities now make more sense, because the Holy Sword not only does damage to a group, but also lowers that level of condemnation a bit from during the battle, which can help, might change the tides of battle, or at the very least buy you a little bit of extra time to rescue people, etc. And final ability, Flame Edge, also costs 2 gain. Deal 2 harm to a target that is behind an arcane barrier and destroy the barrier. Very handy. Angels that have arcane barriers are very hard to damage, as we will discover later. You should have maybe defined arcane barriers, C page, whatever. I'm going to keep doing that. But okay, so that's a good example of a up-close class. It's an all-rounder. You do have an option to have one that's more tanky, so you just hunker down with that low tempo, but that high harmony, high volume, and just wail on the enemies, and maybe then use abilities like Blade Wall to protect those around you, Binding Knife to keep the enemy under control and away and unable to move, and then later on either Holy Sword to clear the area around you, or Flame Edge to just break through a more advanced enemy's blade barrier and then open them up so that then the rest of the party can get in and start doing damage. Lots of fun stuff you can do, and that's just the first class. Now let's take, Class 02. Name for a classic Chinese rocket-powered weapon. Class 02, the Huojian type, was first stabilized in Guangzhou laboratory. Because of its high power output, it is a popular class for skilled users who can mitigate the fragility of the frame. Class 02 units have 2 primary builds, like all classes. The first is a versatile, high-speed, high-output assault weapon, and the sword. Second is a highly stable and forceful sniper. Either way, the Class 2 hymnal is most effective at range. Perfect. We've got an up-close, now we've got a ranged one that we can compare with. And we've got the 2 builds. So less health. These are glass cannons, right? They don't have as much health to work with because they're not meant to be on the front line. These are ranged fighters. And the 2 versions, Type A has 1 volume, 3 tempo, 3 harmony, so very much high mobility, right? Tempo. And harmony is, how do they describe it again? Thoughtful, measured, deliberate actions under fire, lining up the perfect shot, predicting an enemy's movement. So both of these have harmony 3, so they're snipers. high speed, high output assault weapons. So tempo and harmony. So basically they can do type A, not a lot of damage, but moves real fast. And if given the time, they can pull off some good shots. While the second one does a lot of damage, does not. These are the snipers. You're supposed to find a hiding spot where you don't have to move too much, line up your shot, and then fuck them up, son. Fuck them up. They're far attackers, distant attackers. Their basic attack does 2 harm, just like the Class 01. And their powers, let's see what options we have. Power number 1, covering fire. Prevent an attack against one. Wait, great, excellent. So same, it's not just the melee classes, but also the distance classes have a way to cover and protect their fellows. I dig that. This is meant to be squad-based combat. You're not just the one player doing this. You're meant to go together, and the fact that there are mechanics that back that up, appreciate that, love that. Reckless Missile. Deal 2 harm to a near or close target. Cool. All right, so this is like a distance thing. It's deal 2 harm to a near or close target. Oh, okay. I guess we'll see later on, I guess in combat. Yeah, I think maybe they make a point of saying, I think so. I think I may be wrong about this. We'll see this shortly. But I think that by default, if you are a distance character, you cannot attack enemies that are near or close. So this allows you to do that. Spend a gain, fuck it, and that way you're firing a missile at close range and dealing harm to that target when you normally wouldn't be able to spend gain to do it. Okay. But then, crowd control, spend 1, deal 2 harm to a far target. I wonder if, okay, I think that the difference here might be, and again, we'll see maybe if they clear that up on the mechanics, but attempting normal attacks and actions with your dice and your attack damage and all that requires a roll. But when you're using a power, since you're spending gain, you're actually spending a resource. I think that means you don't have to roll for these. They just happen. That's how I'm interpreting it right now. I guess we'll see if the rules prove us wrong, but that's how I feel that it would be right. Like, either you're rolling, but you're not spending anything. But if you are spending something, and the thing that, and specifically what makes me think that is that the fact that you are spending something and then doing the same amount of harm you would do with a normal attack. So I'm guessing what these give you is that they're effectively guaranteed hits. You're spending a resource to make sure that hit hits. And then Sniper 2, Missile Rider 2, move to any zone. And I love the description, Missile Rider, so go ahead and have fun describing that one. But high mobility, spend the gain, move. And Sniper, spend 2 gain, deal 3 harm. Here we go. So now we're doing more harm than usual to a far target. Ignore any rules that take place when the target is destroyed. The target cannot drop condemnation. So we'll see this later, but when angels are destroyed, not all of them I don't think, but some of them, they bleed condemnation or spew condemnation or drop condemnation. So destroying angels can sometimes cause the condemnation in the battlefield to rise further, which is annoying. So this one is a very specific application. I think this is the kind of power that maybe you would pick up later once you've had a chance to grow a little and once you're facing bigger angels and bigger monsters. But it seems very useful because you might be able to take out a bigger angel and not have that fuck up the rest of the battle for everyone else. So very specific use case, but I like it. All right, so we'll just look very quickly at the types. We're not going to dive into their settings. The class 4 is a Qatar type. The Qatar type is the most physically stable class of hymnal, capable of enduring more damage than any other class. For best effect, this hymnal is often built for people with existing hand-to-hand combat training. So this, while you have a basic tank here, this is your full tank. You've got 4 health, you've got regular mobility. The 2 versions are, let's see, controlling. So class 03 specializes in controlling ranges. It executes the attack at a close range, but rockets built into its frame and make it easy for the user to decide what is and is not at close range. Class 03 hymnals are also excellent defenders due to their high speed and durability. So I like that. They are tanks, they can take a lot of hits, but they do have it built in them to do defense and covering fire with their rockets in a distance. All right, moving on to the next one, class 04, Messer type. A sturdier and more versatile variant of Class 01, the Messer type manifests shorter blades like a combat knife, wakizashi or gladius, or in a more resilient frame. Unlike the Class 01, Class 04 makes use of projectile weapons to expand its influence over the battlefield. Its two base types vary greatly in power output, but the Messer type unit shines in defense, being both a relatively sturdy unit and having the flexibility to intercept attacks at any range. So they have high health, so they're basically tanky, but they have higher mobility, high attack here, low attack here, high harmony, low harmony, close and near range. Interesting. So this is a middle ground between the tank and the attacker, with abilities like, we're gonna have to look at a few of these. The sturdy block, prevent an attack against a blade thrower, prevent an attack against a far character, so a lot of crowd control, a lot of battlefield defense, so a more mobile kind of tank that's taking hits and preventing hits for the rest of it. Deal 2 harm to a close damage, pushing them, a little bit of crowd control, moving people around the battlefield, moving enemies around the battlefield. A sniper thing does less damage, but very snipey. And 1 harm to every close target, reduce come to and holy aura. Okay, cool. So very much tanky and defending the others. While one of them has a high volume, by default they don't do a lot of damage, like that 1 harm only. And attack damage again, also this guy, very tanky, 1 harm. They're not meant to do damage, they are meant to mitigate damage to others. And then the final 2 types, let's see here. Class 05, the Ziston type. Newly stabilized in an American weapons lab, the Class 05 is built for pure damage output. It typically manifests a polearm of some kind, like the ancient Greek phalanx spear it was named for. Class 05 units can also manifest scythes, glaives, and even enormous morning stars. So this is the edgelord. This is the edgelord frame, okay? This is all damage, no defense. It got some health. Oh, yeah, so no, it's got more health than Class 01. What the hell? That's America, we all know. Yep, it's damage. Although I think there's one. Yeah, we'll see the Pavis one in a second. Alright, Volume 3, Tempo 3, Harmony 1, or Volume, Tempo, Harmony 3. Both variants have high output. Class 05 was designed to be brutal in combat. Depending on the powers added to the frame, it can be used to great effect as part of a unit or on solo missions. Attack damage is 2 harm, primarily near, and you got stuff like Spitting Shield, prevent an attack in close, Javelin Launch, do 2 harm. Okay, so these are your distance things and close things. Change your song to match another hymnal. Interesting. Flexibility. During descent, deal 2 harm to a target at any range. Move to be close to target. Interesting. So a lot of mobility. A lot of, okay, move around. Interesting. And finally, Class 6, the Pavis type. Fragile but powerful, the Pavis type represents a new direction for hymnal design. Typical Class 6 is lightweight and mobile with advanced scanners that enable enhanced decision-making by its user. These hymnals typically manifest shields of some kind, and some take it to an abstract level by just summoning beams of light. The Class 06 is designed specifically to counter Chorus Angels, the vanguard of heaven. It is the hymnal type most capable of processing and eliminating neurotoxin in condemned spaces, making it especially effective at regaining battlefield. So this is a specialist one. This one is less combat. This one is more about clearing the battlefield of corruption, sounds like. Yeah, they don't do a lot of damage. They don't have a lot of health, but their abilities, they can prevent attacks, they can deal some damage, they can deal 3 harm to any Chorus Angels, so they are particularly tuned to deal harm to those types of angels, for which we'll see hopefully a little bit better in a bit. Reduce condemnation by 20. Does no damage to anything, but it definitely helps with the battlefield. And hey, Conjure Barrier. Apply an arcane barrier to a near or far hymnal, which is nice, because up until now, only the angels have been doing the barriers. So this one gets to steal a few tricks from the angels on that. I dig that. So those are your 6 class types, your 6 roles. So you choose in combat what you primarily want to be doing: up close and personal, remote, running all over the battlefield, jumping around, or trying, or this feels like the character that in an anime gets introduced like halfway or 2/3 throughout the season, and it's very powerful at the one specific thing that the hero has been lacking, and then they just join and they're considered part of the team, even though they were only on 2 episodes of the entire season. That's the vibe I'm getting from the Class 6. All right, so now we're going to look at the songs. This I'm excited about. So they say specifically that you pick, I think you can pick 3 songs that you know of, and then when you go into battle, you pick which song you're singing, and the song that you sing affects what you can do, affects what you do during the fight, how much gain you get, and stuff. And if more than one of you is doing a duet, if more than one of you picks the same kind of song, they have additional benefits and abilities. But also there may be, since each song has a different effect, there may be reasons and times when it is better for you to have different songs. See, this just screams pick your favorite AMV for NG, the more thing. Yeah, it is. That's exactly it. If you play this game and your players are coming to you on session 1 after session 0, they picked out their class or whatever, and they're coming to you with an AMV of what they think their character looks like and the songs they're going to sing, you have chosen the correct players. That's what this game is for. That is what this game is for. So your choices, your song choices are a regretful song. I think the number is the amount of gain you get per round when you're singing that song. 400%. So a regretful song, the questions that you ask yourself with that song is, what have you done? Why did you feel like you had no other choice? It's a song of regret. Whenever you use your action to protect someone, this doesn't include powers, just an actual action, increase your gain by 2. A regretful song, when you sing it, will give you benefits and encourage you to protect others. When you hit with an attack, you can spend 1 gain to deal 1 additional harm, and it gives you an ability to channel that regret and that rage into more damage as you scream out your regret into the song. If in a duet, if more than one of you is singing this, I'm going to read this next. I love this mechanic. It's basically just approaches, but I love the taste of it. I love the feel of it. Duet power, cost 6 gain from each participating hymnal. So stuff like duets, you are building up gain. You're not meant necessarily, you can spend, or you might be able to spend all the gain that you get every round. But part of the game and part of how, like that anime thing of like, why didn't you pull out your ultimate weapon from the start? You got to build up to it. You got to build up your gain. And if you're going all out from the beginning, you're not going to be able to store up enough gain to actually pull off the more advanced stuff. Once both you and the other person have enough gain, then you can go into a duet. And then for a regretful song, that is 6 gain from each participant hymnal. Then you deal 1 harm to each opponent for every 10% condemnation applied to the battlefield. This is a good one to pull off near the end of the fight. There's a lot of condemnation happening. The battlefield has gotten worse. And in a duet of regret over the damage that has been done to the world in this fight because you have not been able to defeat the angels quickly enough, you let out this duetted scream of musical rage, and every single angel on the battlefield takes damage. That's dope. That's dope. I like that. Exactly. Sadly, Struggle Bus, you don't start with your final form. So, going from the regretful song to the hopeful song. So perhaps you have chosen to enter combat with a hopeful song. What gets you through the day? Do you genuinely, really believe in hope? So you can spend, when in a hopeful song, you can spend 2 gain to increase another character's HP by 1. This is a healing song. You automatically succeed on evacuate rolls. The evacuate rolls are defined later in the combat. Basically, this is if you're going to be a defender, if you're going to try and rescue the people, this is a great one to enter combat in. Or maybe in the middle of a fight when things are getting a little bit harried and you need to rescue the civilians and people in your group are hurt, maybe switching to a hopeful song to raise their spirits and give you an edge could work. And a hopeful duet costs 6 gain from each participating hymnal. Remove 50% condemnation from the battlefield. Nice, big battlefield clearing. And apply an arcane barrier to every hymnal and civilian in the scene. I like that. A full Aegis of protection while clearing out the bulk of the corruption and the condemnation. The battlefield, that is wild. I like that very much. Let's go for a violence song, which is the one that I suspect most people will pick when going into a fight because violence. So a violence song, which gives you 2 gain every round. Who or what are you really out to destroy? Will you ever get the chance? Whenever you would deal harm, deal 2 extra harm. No wonder you would choose that. Holy shit, yeah, you go into battle with a violent song because all of a sudden you are doubling the amount of damage you're just doing every round with nothing else. You are angry, you are violent, and you are hacking these angels to pieces. When you attack on a roll of 2 to 5, your action is a success with consequences. Normally, interesting. Okay, I like that. So normally 1 or 2 would be a failure with consequences, and 4 and 5 and 6 would be success with no consequences. This increases your range of success. So the only thing that misses is a 1 and with consequences. But it lowers the range of success without consequences to just 6. Every other result, all other 4 results, 2/3 of everything are going to be success with consequences, because you are violent, you are out of control, you're going to cause collateral damage. You're going to cause a lot of damage, though. I like that. I like that. It's evocative. It's fun. I approve. I approve. Let's go ahead and see a duet of violence. Let's see what a duet of violence looks like. Let's see. Cost 6 gain from each participating. Okay, pretty solid. There's one that costs less later on, but 6 gain from each one. Deal 1 harm to each enemy in the scene. All other hymnal units singing a violence song do the same. Okay, so I was going to say that's not that powerful. It's just 1 harm, which is the same thing that a Redful song does, and doesn't even lower condemnation, but that's what makes it dope. Because a duet is going to be at least 2, possibly 3, 4, however many. If you all do it, every single one that does another harm. So you start at 2, if 3 of you, 3 harm, 4 of you, 4 harm, 5 of you, 5 harm. Yeah, that can be a working up, once everybody has enough gain, working up to a violent song, duet, or trio, or barbershop quartet of violence. Yeah, that sounds like it could be brutal on the battlefield. The Proud Song. Proud Song gives you 3 gain. What do you want the world to know? Where does your confidence come from? Your hymnal or something else? So if you're singing a proud song, when you hit with an attack, you can spend 1 gain to deal 1 additional harm. Cool, solid. You can focus your power. You're proud, and you can focus your gain and your power into doing more harm. And you do get a little bit more gain than average, so you can still spend that gain. And when you deal harm with a power, cool. I haven't seen any other songs that affect the powers. Powers sort of stand on their own. You can spend 1 gain to deal additional harm. All right, so Proud Song gives you a little bit more gain per round at 3, versus most other songs only give you 2, except the Hopeful Song. But Hopeful Song is a very defensive and healing song. This is more of a tanky kind of song, really. Or not tanky, like Frontline Fighter. Proud Song, yeah. Because then you're getting a little bit more gain, and you can channel that gain into doing a bit more damage than you normally would. And then a Proud Duet costs 6 from each participating hymnal. Destroy any opponent, even if they are behind an arcane barrier. You read it right, folks. Destroy any opponent. So you get at least 2 people doing a Proud Song and enough gain on them, and they will take out your BBEG. It's only 1 as opposed to affecting the entire battlefield like a lot of the other ones. It's only affecting 1 target, but it's doing more than affecting. It's taking them out. Cool. And then I believe that's the final song, right? Any more songs? Nope, that's it. The final song is a Resolute Song. Gives you 2 gain. What have you survived to make it to this point? Do you even know what your limits are? Can you face them? So whenever you would take harm, take 1 less harm. Okay, this is a tank song. And it makes sense for Resolute. And when you attack on a roll of 3 to 6, your action is a complete success. All right, I like that. And then Duet Power, which is cheaper. Deal 1 harm to every enemy in the scene for every harm you have taken. Definitely a tank song. Yeah, you go up and you tank, and as you take hits, and hopefully, whoever's singing the Hopeful Song occasionally heals you up, or maybe one of the other frames, the other the other hymnals are able to keep your HP up, but also every damage you've taken. Yeah, rep. If you got two tanks, they can fuck people off later. I like that. So those are your basic songs, and I think there's room for making up more. I think I'm not going to make them up right now because I don't have the brain for it. I would have to sit down, I think. Although if anybody in chat has suggestions, feel free. But I think there's room for more songs, right? I think there's so many songs out there, and there's more. You would need to come up right with the stats for it, But I think there's room there. I think there's room there. I wonder if anybody else has come up with additional songs, if the game creator themselves has maybe more songs and ideas, because I think this can definitely be expanded on. I like that. All right. Nothing will stand in our way. Not hate, not violence, not love, and not even heaven itself. Especially not heaven. The harder part is definitely balance stats as opposed to style songs. Yeah, exactly. Like, you need to find a balance. What part is tricky? I wouldn't say like just make them up as you go, but I think there is room for expansion here. I think there is, in a more, if this game had the chance to have a more expanded, I would have loved to see maybe a discussion on how to define and create your own songs, right? So you can have further battlefield fight. But this covers the bulk of it, right? This covers the bulk of your basic like tank, healing, DPS, etc. kind of roles. So this does cover most of what you'd need. This is just me like wishing if I could have a pony, why not have a pony, right? So I like that. Let's see. To battle, the curtain rises. Take the stage. So this is now where we're actually going to get a little bit more explanation on the combat. So I'm going to skim through it. So ranges, right? We want to, before beginning a mission, choose a song you will use to activate your hymnal from your list of 3 songs. Unless you hit 0 HP or have a power that says otherwise, you cannot change your song from this point onward. So that is the tricky part. There are some powers. I think we saw, which one was it? The Siston type has a way to change their song to match another hymnal. So they're good for duets, and I think that's the only one we saw. I'll change the song. Yeah, I think that's the only one that I saw that has a power that lets you change your song. So that's also tricky. You have to decide at the beginning of the fight which song you're gonna go. And if you later want to do a duet power, you will either hopefully be on the battlefield with a Siston model, or beginning 2 of you chose the same song. So that makes the duets particularly hard to pull off, but also explains why they're so powerful when you do manage to pull them off. Okay, cool. I get that. It's interesting. I would say, and I don't know if maybe it says so here. I don't think so. It specifically says you cannot change your song from this point forward. I, for one, would say, although it would be incredibly risky, absolutely incredibly risky, I do not see, I'm just skimming real through, I don't see a specific defined way for you to do that, but I would personally house rule this. It would just be how I would house rule it. I'll let you change your song, but you have to stop singing. You have to end your current song, which means your hymnal powers down. So you will be a civilian for 1 round. If you want to change your song, you better have somebody cover you, or have a way to get away from the battlefield, or somehow protect yourself, because you will be vulnerable for a round. You will be a civilian for a round as you then restart your song and your hymnal reforms with those new melodies and those new frequencies. That's how I would do it. I would not simply forbid it, but I would make it, but it is still a huge risk. As a civilian, your character may die. The game does make it clear that death is a player choice, not a GM choice, but you may effectively be taken out of combat, I'd say. Maybe not killed, but I'm going to drop building on you. You can be rescued later, but I'm going to drop a building on you, because now you're just a dude. So that's how I would pull it. That's pure house rule. Rules as written. Pick a song, stick with it, unless you have a power that lets you change. Makes sense. Let's see. So the distance, the ranges. Since we did have a few powers and abilities that did reference those. So let's do that. So we've got 3 ranges, right? Yep, looks like we've got 3 ranges. Yeah, 3. Close, near, and far. So close are at most a step away. Near are close enough to throw something at. And far, our characters are outside of normal throwing range, still visible. Pretty straightforward. I've seen games with 4 ranges. This one's got 3. Really all you need. So you just kind of keep track of where in relation to your character everyone else is. Are they close? Are they near? Are they far? Player turns. Combat is a cycle between 2 main phases. Player turn, GM turn. Players take their individual turn whenever they like during the player turn. There is no set order. Cool. Players go first in whatever order they want. During their individual turn, you can move anywhere on the battlefield once. So you can go from near to far to near, etc. And make an action. Before you make a movement and an action, you receive gain based on your chosen song, which we saw earlier. Each song has a number. That number is the gain that you gain while singing that song every round during battle. So the first thing that happens in a round, you get your gain. You gain your gain. Assuming there are, then you move. The song's game value. You move, assuming there are no barriers. You can, however, only make one movement on your turn. Any additional movement requires you to use a power. Checks out. An action may be any number of things. Your most common actions are evacuate civilians and attack. That said, any action you can think of that isn't covered by one of your powers can take place on your turn. You might use your action to smash into a fortified compound or break free of a crystal prison summoned by a Nephilim. Cool. So that's what you do on your turn. Then the GM takes their turn. So this is interesting. The GM turn is very not freeform. Like, it is very regimented. There is a specific set of steps that you as the GM are taking every turn. So you do 3 things on your turn as the GM. The first thing is roll for drops. So during combat, and this is reminiscent again of a lot of anime. A second. You know how there's always more mooks coming? There's just always more low-level enemies and more people coming in, more bad guys. So that's the drops. You're rolling for drops. You're rolling to see if more people more enemies are joining the battle pretty much every round. You take 2 enemy actions per player character. So you get to, again, this is combat. This is combat, and your player characters are, as a rule, far more powerful than the enemies. But because of that, the enemies are usually going to outnumber them rather, and you as the GM get to do a lot of stuff with them. And then change the battle, which we'll get to very shortly as well. So the GM keeps track of every enemy that is defeated. On the GM turn, roll 1d6 for GM. And then, as I mentioned before, even when you take an enemy out, there is a chance that they will either drop more condemnation as they bleed out this corruption. Always more mooks feels very feng shui tabletop RPG terms. Yeah, just be sure not give them names as then look at stats. Oh man, feng shui. I want to play more feng shui. I miss feng shui. But yeah, so when an enemy dies, if you roll a 1, it adds, the GM will roll a 1 every time an enemy dies. On a 1, you raise the battlefield condemnation level. So there's always a risk as you're taking enemies out. And if the die is a 5 or 6, the enemy leaves a usable angel scrap, which can restore 1 health to a hymnal unit, which is cool. Every time you kill an enemy, there is a solid chance, a 1/3 chance, that you will get to heal. You'll grab an angel scrap, and you can use that to heal, which you'll need, because I'm throwing lots of enemies at you. But there's also the risk that the corruption in the world is going to increase. I dig that. And then every enemy has a short list of actions to choose from. We'll look at a few enemies. On the GM turn, the GM chooses 2 actions from these lists for every player character in the combat. The same opponent can act multiple times during this phase. Try and choose moves that will press the players into using gain. Yeah, exactly. You want them using their gain, using their abilities. You want to pressure them. Finally, the GM changes something large about the battle in this phase. Maybe another wave of angels arrive from a different chorus. Maybe a Nephilim arrives. We'll see Nephilim soon enough. Maybe a dam bursts, flooding the battlefield, or a nearby train is threatening to derail. Whatever you choose to do, make sure it demands attention. So that's the thing. It's meant to... And that part at first kind of surprised me a little, because that means you're basically escalating every single round. But it fits with the anime aesthetic. Like, combat is meant to be, if your combat gets reduced to just, I do my hits, and then you do your hits, and then I do my hits, and then you do your hits, and we just go back and forth rolling dice until one side falls down. That is the worst kind of like super basic D&D combat. That's the combat that bores everyone at the table, right? Here, the GM is basically given the task like, no, you are not allowed to let combat be that boring. You are not allowed to do that, sir. You have to make sure that every round shit is going wild. It's not just the enemies it's the surroundings, it's the people. There are civilians in danger. This is it happening in the middle of the city. There are trains, there are buildings, there is infrastructure, there are situations that come up that require your attention, that if you, as the heroes, do not act and do something about them, bad things. So that's part of it. You are making sure that your players realize that there are stakes in the battle besides just defeating the enemies. They are fighting for something and someone. They are defending their city, and they need to keep in mind where they are fighting as they fight. I actually really like, in having had some time to look at it and think about it. Yeah, I'm really digging that. So powers. Players can use powers whenever they have the gain to do. So that's interesting. You don't have to wait for your turn. You can use as many powers as you like, as often as you like, as long as you have the gain for it. This includes powers granted by songs. If a power will destroy an opponent who is in the process of taking an action on the GM turn or a consequence, the action still takes place before the opponent is destroyed. Aside from that, powers happening outside the user's turn can happen in any sequence. So that's also good to know. That means that these powers and abilities that your characters have that cost, and I think that's part of why, and a lot of them, they don't really do more harm than a normal attack. Normal attack does too. This also does too and costs you a gain, so what's the point? The point is that this I can do at any time. If somebody else already took their turn, so it looks like using a power is not an action. Just if you have the gain for it, you can use the power even not during your turn. So that's cool. That gives you a level of flexibility as a player as well. Again, look, as the GM, you're rolling for drops, you're adding enemies to the scene, you're harrying your players, you're making it more complicated. But the players themselves, they're playing capable characters, they're playing powerful characters, and they can do things like this. They can want another player takes a hit at one of the major bad guys, leaving them with only 1 harm left. Boom. Or 2 harm left. Boom. No problem. The other guy, the class 05 from the back goes, wait, I've still got gain. I already took my action this turn, but I still have gain. I'm going to spend it and launch my Javelin of Light or whatever, and boom, 2 harm. And that just happens, right? I spent it. The power happens, there's no roll, they take the damage, enemy goes down. Dope. So again, the players have a lot to on their side. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to harry them a little. They are capable. The character types are very powerful. Let's see. So attacking. Making an attack is one of the possible ways of using your action. Pretty straightforward. Make an attack. Describe the attack to the GM. Agree on a stat to use. A full-on assault may roll volume, and a carefully aimed shot may roll harmony, for example. If your roll is a success, that is, if your highest roll is 3, 4, 5, or 6, then you deal your unit's attack damage in harm to a target in your attack range. Pretty straightforward. Doesn't require a lot of explanation. Simple combat. Civilians. Now this is important. This is important because it says already, angels deliberately attack places where there are likely to be civilian casualties. This is why it's brought up at the beginning. It's mentioned a few more times, and it fits with the theme of the game. Again, these angels are not attacked in the middle of the ocean. They're not up in Antarctica. They are not in isolated places. They are specifically out to destroy humanity. That means they come at us in our cities and in populated places. The angels are looking for civilian casualties, and you are here to defend. Let's see, this makes me feel better about the 3-4 being adjudicated success with consequences, with things like that being in the game. Exactly. That's the thing. This game is meant to be very fast moving. Every roll has consequences. Everything moves the story forward or causes something to happen. There should be very few moments where if a roll was made, if an action was taken, there was no result. Some consequence is almost always going to happen, or you succeeded and that is its own consequence in effect, right? So I like that. Let's see. So civilians have 1 health. This means in your missions there are likely to be civilians present on the battlefield. Civilians have 1 health. They will die if an angel attacks them or if condemnation is too high. Your mission includes preventing as many civilian casualties as possible. To that end, as an action, you can work to safely evacuate civilians from the area. Dashing to civilians to offer them cover as they run could be a tempo roll, while smashing through a wall to get them an escape route could be a volume roll. Describe your plan. So if you're not attacking or using a power, you're hopefully evacuating civilians. So you succeed on your roll, and if you succeed on your roll, up to 5 civilians can escape the scene. When we look at some of the scenes, they'll give us a number of civilians. And consequences. So let's see what they mean by consequences. You say, yeah, success with consequences and fail with consequences. What they mean by consequences. Good that they're defining that. Now, I've seen games that don't. So whenever your highest roll is a 4 or lower, you face consequences. In combat, this usually means that a nearby enemy gets to make a move. When there are no enemies nearby, or where there is another pressing concern on the battlefield, the GM may decide to make the situation worse in any number of ways. For example, a nearby civilian may be injured, requiring an evacuation roll just to get one person away from the scene. Perhaps the opponent conjures traps, making it impossible for characters to take their movement without facing some sort of danger. These changes shouldn't be as big as the ones imposed on the GM turn, so you're not crashing trains through walls for a consequence generally. But they should be something worth paying attention to. They're still a consequence. That's a hard balance to make. As a GM, that's a hard balance to make. All right, so what happens when you die? You reach 0 health, 0 gain. They've established that you can trade health and gain back and forth, so it is hard for you to go to 0, but if it happens, you take a heavy hit, and you have the wind knocked out of them, stopping them from singing. If they have any gain, they can funnel that gain into health, stand back up, and pick a new song to sing. Cool. But if they have 0 gain and 0 health, and their hymnal unit is deactivated, leaving them as vulnerable as any civilian would be, they can still move, but not particularly quickly, and although they can still take actions, they don't have the augmented capacity of their hymnal unit provides. At this point, the GM should ask, is death on the table? If the players, especially the person playing the vulnerable character, agree that death should be possible in the scene, then, like any other civilian, the character can be killed by angels or condemnation. If the players do not agree to character death, then the support staff evacuate the character back to their base to seek medical attention. So, as it said at the beginning of the book, death is always a player option, not a GM option, which is good to know. Okay, condemnation. Now we're getting a better explanation of what that condemned condemnation is. It's, again, that poison. Angels do more than kill. They also spread condemnation, a potent neurotoxin that corrupts an entire area, making it completely uninhabitable. A condemned area is thick with dull rainbow colors like an oil slick, full of heavy fog that obscures vision and poisons everything. All right, so what are the effects? Hymnal units and some things are capable of processing limited amounts of condemnation. What happens? When the battlefield reaches 50% condemned, that's the first milestone, every character and civilian in the scene takes 1 harm at the start of the GM turn. Now, do you remember how civilians only have 1 hit point? If the battlefield is 50% or higher condemned, you had best gotten those civilians out, and you best not be in civilian form yourself, because you're dead. Straight up, that's it. Any human stepping into a 50% or higher condemned battlefield without the protection of a hymnal, done. If the battlefield is 100% condemned, which sucks for you, every character and civilian in the scene takes 1 harm whenever a roll calls for consequences and at the start of the GM turn. So you definitely do not want that. It's going to start wearing you down hard. 2 out of 3 rolls will cost you harm. Yeah, very spicy, but also it means that you let condemnation get to 100%. On average, it only goes up 10% on a roll of 1 on a d6 when an enemy is destroyed, although there are enemies that actively spread condemnation, and we'll see them shortly. But again, that's 100% condemnation. If you let things get that bad, yeah, things are spicy for other reasons too at that point. And then the arcane barrier, which has been mentioned a few times. See, again, a lot of less bitching on my part would have happened with just a link to see page 3031 for these terms. Arcane barrier. Until recently, only angels could erect the mysterious shields called arcane barriers. Recently produced hymnal units may also have the ability to project arcane barriers as well, thanks to advances in heretical technology. When a target or character is behind an arcane barrier, the next source of harm to them is negated. Which is why that's why arcane barriers are cool. They will absorb 1 hit, but it doesn't matter how big the hit is. They will absorb that source of damage, which makes them very useful in specific situations. Oh, hey cat. My cat is down there. She says hello. When a target or character is behind an arcane barrier, the next source of harm is negated. Whether it's an attack or an environmental effect, the barrier absorbs the harm and then vanishes. If an effect would deal harm to a target through an arcane barrier, just like the punch through power, the barrier is destroyed. Good to know. And then a duet, which we spoke about before. When two or more hymnal units sing the same song, they gain an additional power called a duet power. All units singing the song pay the gain cost of the duet power in order to use it. Duet powers represent the secret strength of the hymnal unit, the ability to channel passion into power. When two people sing the same song, believe in the same future, and put their lives on the line, the hymnal units are capable of even more power output than ordinarily possible. Which is cool, because again, the songs have different effects. You may have reasons to be singing different songs, but if two of you come together, if you are in sync, if you both go in with the same song, with the same purpose, and sing it together, the game reflects that. The game reflects the power and passion that comes with it. Fuck yeah, I love that. I love that mechanic. I think it's real good. I think it's very, very atmospheric. It fits the feel of the game. If our voices carry up to heaven, I want them to hear that we will die fighting. I fucking love that. These quotes are amazing. So your missions. Okay, so these are your missions. So we're not going to get... This part's going to go very quickly. And then we'll probably wrap up the stream because we're at 2.5 hours. So hopefully we'll wrap up at 3 hours. That's my goal. But these are the missions. These are the missions and a description of what happens with them, what happens between missions, the scenes that you do. You got a little bit of slice of life, stuff like that, how to upgrade. So there is some level of character advancement in between missions. Upgrades are responsibility of Chief Arcanist. Between missions to take breaks, so you can do stuff like increasing your health by 2 points, increasing your damage output by 1, learning a new power, learning a power from another class, or even learning a 4th song. But it's very much sort of milestone advancement and story advancement. Okay, so now we're talking about the agency. These are the people that actually make the hymnals and give them to you and send you on missions. The agency, our voices is one. Your characters are backed by an agency. Before starting the game, you're going to decide as a group whether this agency is private or government owned. Is it a large agency with dozens of hymnal units, or a small one with just enough staff to manage your missions? Make a choice. Build your world. That's going to definitely change the flavor and affect the flavor of what you're doing it. And then tells you the basic positions and what they do and how to create these sort of NPCs for your agency and the roles that they would play. So in your like kind of Evangelion way, these are the non-kids. These are the people, the adults in the organization that are preparing the armor and the weapons, and the kids and having to deal with all that fallout. Some interesting stuff there. And then let's get to the angels. So these are the bad guys. We've heard a lot about them. And the first chorus of angels. So let's look at 3 of them. So the first mooks, the most everyday mooks, the spearhead of many angelic attacks. The first chorus angels are mobile, with their crystalline bodies hovering about a foot off the ground. They hum a low, soft note as they whirl through the air, spreading condemnation. When near humans, a jagged blade like a circular saw emerges around them, and they spin furiously. Okay, so first angels. So your basic angels, they're nasty. They only have 1 health. They do 1 harm at close range, and they have 2 moves that they can pull off. One is to add 10% condemnation to the battlefield, so that sucks for you. That's a non-angel. Or absorb 1 gain from a close hymnal. Ooh. So these are your everyday mooks. They don't do a lot of damage, but they are annoying. They are annoying, and I like that they're annoying from the start. Nice stop. Lol, cats deserve love. Exactly. Thank you. You are my people. You are my people. Thank you for that. Meanwhile, let's look at a more advanced angel. Let's look at the 4th chorus, or maybe even the 5th chorus. Let's go all the way, because after that it's Nephilim. All right, I want to talk about the Nephilim. So we'll go from the bottom chorus, from the ones, to all the way to the 5th chorus. The angels of the 5th chorus look like shining pearls, softly rolling around on the ground. They make a high trilling noise as they roll, and condemnation follows in their wake. They are not particularly powerful or very sturdy, but when they are destroyed, they explode into a violent rainbow of shards, injuring any humans, angels, or hymnals nearby. Hymnal units have been lost to carelessly engaging with the 5th chorus. They're not necessarily just going more powerful at every turn. They're different. They also add a lot of condemnation. Yeah, 3rd chorus, arrows of heaven. 4th chorus, brutes. Yeah, so they're just different types of angels, different specializations like the hymnals themselves. I dig that. And then there's the Nephilim. These are the mini-bosses. Mini-bosses are a terrifying fusion of angel and human. Nephilim have begun appearing in some angelic assaults. More than just troops, they seem to be organizing the attacks, summoning angels, and executing complex strategy, which is, again, classic anime stuff, right? You start fighting, and it's these humanoid or just monstrous beings that you're fighting back and forth, and then suddenly somebody who actually looks more human than the rest appears, and they're always a lot more powerful, and they're bigger enemies, and they're in charge, and they're more mysterious. And also, you know that one of them is going to end up as a good guy before the series is over. But hey, only one or two are ever encountered at a time, leading arcanists to suggest that they're still rare, but their numbers are growing and their goals still a mystery. You should use Nephilim sparingly in your game, as they're considerably more powerful than angels. If you need recurring antagonists for your story, feel free to have them teleport away when defeated. Consider these your boss characters. So Nephilim, you got a summoner. Basically, their big thing is that they are summoning third and fourth chorus angels if condemnation is high enough, and they can move very fast. They have beams. They do a lot of harm and damage, high health. Or the plague witches. So I'm assuming, yeah, their main thing is that they are also summoning angels. They are adding more condemnation. They are more distance, while the summoners are more close up. Cool. And the disruptors. Disruptors are heaven's answer to hymnal units. Engineered in every way to defeat humanity's last hope, these angelic warriors wield enormous swords of rainbow light. They are built for close-range combat, and they do not hesitate to close the distance with hymnals and attempt to destroy them. So the other ones keep their distance. This one comes up close, and holy shit, absorbs 4 gain from a close hymnal unit. Arcane barrier, deals 2 harm in a close burst, and add 10 combat. Jesus Christ. Nephilim are your boss monsters. Cool. Powerful. Okay, and then mission control. So now we've got time to stand. So this is the GM section. We're not going to dive too deep into it, but it is giving you some GM guidance, how they create the NPCs, the kinds of stories, and then we've got a sample mission that shows you what a mission in this game would look like, which I appreciate that. Always give me a sample. Show me what you, the game creator, think this game should be like. Give me that example, right? So this is exactly what we're doing here. So we're getting that mission introduction, the types of angels, what to do, what angels first show up, the faces, what you're going to do during your GM turns, optional character forte, so there's a Nephilim or whatever. Yeah, cool. And here's some real basic maps. It's not a lot to them, but there they are. And then your character sheet, which is cool. So you've got your commander, your intelligence analyst. So this is your organization sheet, and this is the character sheet. So you got your songs, and this is the stuff for the organization. Cool. And that's it. Curtain call. So let's read their goodbye as we wrap up the game, and very shortly after wrap up the stream. Curtain call. Pick up your flowers and go. Thank you for reading Blazing Hymn. We will damn this world again. You're welcome. I have very much enjoyed it. This game is a love letter to both the anime series Neon Genesis Evangelion and Senki Zesho Symphogear. If you like this game and hadn't seen them, check them out. I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to tweet me at PeachGardenRPGs or CatlinGun to tell me what you thought. This game is illuminated by Lumen, based on the Lumen RPG system designed by Spencer Campbell, Gila RPGs. This game is in no way affiliated with Spencer Campbell or Gila RPGs, so we really do need to look at the game at some point. That's another stream that I should do, another show that I should do at some point. Add that to the list. Hey, let's examine a few SRDs. Let's look at a few of those systems. Fonts used, okay, so that's just the standard stuff. Thanks and happy birthdays and everything, and land acknowledgements. Great, we did it, we got them. And honestly, let's see, so what do we think of Blazing Hymn? I like it. I really enjoyed this. My opinion of Blazing Hymn, again, just cantrip, thumbs up. Look, almost all the games are going to get thumbs up from me, but this one in particular, I was excited coming in. This one I actually had read before. It's very simple, very compact. Again, it's very focused, right? It's just a zine. There's not that many pages there. It does a lot with what it has. It definitely has some really flavorful, really evocative phrasings that I really dig. I like the concept. The combat seems simple, straightforward, but still complex enough, still enough variety in it that I think it's probably going to be a lot of fun to play. The combat, again, is very like this mix of theater of the mind, but also with ranges, which it's totally doable, totally doable. See, it gives you enough to play off of, and the people who are familiar with the source materials can run with the rest. Exactly. It is. We're going to see that with a lot of indie games. Indie games tend to be very focused, right? They usually tend to pick a specific concept and just go with it because they don't have the page count and don't have the budget and everything to just go in and go, I'm going to create an expansive world and I'm going to create a system that's meant to handle everything that could happen in this world. Now, we have a setting, we have a specific thing we want to do. We want to play magical singing girls with magical musical power armor that sing badass songs and fight angelic beings that are harming the world, and we take the fight back to heaven. That's what this game, if you want to do that, this game is here for you. That is exactly what it aims to provide, and I think it does a really good job of providing that in a very compact package. So highly recommend Blazing Him, Damn This World Together if you have a few people who are fans of the genre, fans, and especially if they have seen, anybody who has seen Symphogear will want to play this. Simple. That's it. That's not even a maybe. Oh, if you like Symphogear, you might like, you will like this. If you like Symphogear, you will see this and you will go, I want to play this. I want to play this. Let me be. Let me play in this world. So looking forward to that. Big win for Catling Gun and Peach Garden RPG games. Look them up. Check them out.